To the wonderful, fun, exciting, bubbly state of Michigan and that Upper Peninsula. So let's go ahead and get started with Michigan. So I believe Missouri will be next, I think. Roger will let me know. How do ballot initiatives work in the state of Michigan? Citizens of Michigan may initiate legislation as either an indirect initiated state statute, meaning that after a successful petition drive, the initiative is presented to the legislature to adopt to pass. The state legislature has 40 days to adopt or reject the proposal. If the legislature rejects the initiative citizen law, then the measure is placed on the next general election ballot for voters to weigh in. What is that thing at the bottom? That's not on my screen. I'm really confused by what's happening here. I don't know why that shows. I guess it just does. Oh, well. Hold on, guys. I don't know what I did. Really weird that it shows up like that. That thing at the bottom is just there. Anyhow, Michigan is also a direct initiated constitutional amendment state. Now, this means that after a successful petition drive, where if the petition contains sufficient signatures, then the amendment bypasses Michigan government and goes straight to the ballot for voters to weigh in on for ratification with no stopping at Michigan legislature. This is different from Massachusetts because remember, our legislator can still jump in and say, yeah, we know you guys passed this, but we're not really feeling it, bud. But not in Michigan, apparently. In addition, residents have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum. The Michigan State Legislature can also place measures on the ballot as legislatively referred constitutional amendments. In reference to the single subject rule, Michigan does not have a single subject rule for ballot initiatives. Let me explain what that means really quick for those of you who are new. A single subject rule for ballot initiatives means that you can only put one subject on the ballot each time. So you can't put multiple ballot measures as a part of one question. Like, for example, when Senator Eldridge was here, one of the things we had discussed was, what about running a ballot initiative for Medicare for all and attaching that to attaching that to public banks, like public banking. So we can say the public bank would help, fund the universal or single payer healthcare here. And unfortunately, in Massachusetts, you can't do that. So we do have a single subject rule here in Massachusetts, but Michigan does not. That means that Michigan can pair two measures together so that one cannot exist without the other. So if you're passing one, you're passing the other measure as well. Subject restrictions. Michigan citizens can initiate statutes and constitutional amendments that the legislator could also enact under the Michigan Constitution. Citizens cannot initiate veto referendums against bills that include appropriations for state institutions or state funds. Let's look at competing initiatives. In Michigan, when two ballot measures approved at the same election are in conflict, the measure with the most affirmative votes supersedes the other. That's important, right? Again, their state is a little bit different. Signature requirements. In Michigan, the number of signatures needed to place a measure on the ballot is based on the total number of votes cast for the governor in the preceding election. The following are the requirements for types of citizen-initiated measures in Michigan. Initiated constitutional amendment, 10% of the votes cast for governor. Initiated state statute, 8% of the votes cast for governor. And veto referendum, 5% of the votes cast for governor. Distribution requirements. Michigan has no distribution requirement to gather signatures. Thank God, since they are equivalent to an electoral college. Interesting. So let's go ahead and get into the first measure here. Let me make this is so tiny for me. Let me see if I can make it a little bit. I don't know how to make this smaller. This thing is big now. I don't know what to do. Okay, here we go. Thanks, Eric. Yay, that is so much better. Thank you. Okay, Michigan, proposal number 1, legislative term limits and financial disclosure amendment. Okay, a yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to change the term limits for state legislators from 3 2-year terms, which is 6 years, in the state house, and 2 4-year terms, which is 8 years, in the state senate, to 12 combined years in the legislature, and provide that elected state legislative and state executive officials, the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and attorney general, must file annual public financial disclosure reports on their income, assets, liabilities, gifts from lobbyists, positions held in certain organizations except religious, social, and political organizations, and agreements on future employment. This measure did pass by 66.45%. So I agree that they should have to disclose their income, their assets, their liabilities, especially this portion that says gifts from lobbyists. I think they should have to. They should have to disclose that information. Dave says that's a good one. Yeah, that one is a good one. Let's go on. So how did the ballot measure address financial disclosure? It says Proposal 1 amends the Michigan Constitution, which addresses conflicts of interest in state government. Now that begins on April 15th of 2024. The ballot measure adds a new subsection to require elected state legislative and state executive officials to file annual financial disclosure reports on their income, assets, liabilities, gifts from lobbyists, positions held in certain organizations, and agreements on future employment. Who supported this? Of course, unions. Michigan AFL-CIO, Michigan Education Association. Organizations, Michigan Chamber of Commerce, and West Michigan Policy Forum. One of the arguments was from State Senator Jeremy Moss. I think this will create a long-term good impact on public policy here in the state because hopefully the people who author them are still going to be accountable instead of creating a short-term proposal and then leaving other legislators in the future to clean up the mess. I hear that. That has happened here in Massachusetts. I am sorry. Opposition, no more time for career politicians, led the campaign in opposition. One of the arguments was from Kurt O'Keefe. He's the executive director of the Michigan Term Limits Defense Fund. Yet another effort by the political class, composed of the elites of both political parties and special interests, especially big business and big labor, to extend the perceived right to rule over us. This proposal is of the Lansing Beltway, by the Lansing Beltway, and for the Lansing Beltway. We will expose it for what it is, and it will be soundly rejected by the citizens of Michigan. Well, it looks like they voted for it, so that's that. And campaign finance money that was spent for this, most of the campaign finance money was spent to support this measure, and then there was also over $100,000 to oppose it, but most of it, just like over $1 million here, was spent to support it. Let's move on to the next one. This was an interesting comment from Roger Meadows. Wow, a government that actually regulated itself. Can I get some of that in my New York state, please? We need one willing to share lawmaking and amendment proposal powers with us. Number 2, Michigan Proposal 2, voting policies in constitutional amendment. A yes vote supported adding several election and voting related policies to the Michigan Constitution, including some policies that exist in statute and others which would be new. Prop 2 added the following policies to the state constitution: creating a 9-day early voting period, requiring voters to present photo ID or sign an affidavit when voting in person or applying for an absentee ballot. 3, requiring that the military and overseas ballots postmarked by election day are counted. Uh, you shouldn't even have to say that. Oh my God, that should be a given. Okay. 4, providing voters with a right to request an absentee ballot. 5, requiring the state to fund prepaid stamps and a tracking system for absentee ballots. 6, requiring the state to fund a number of absentee ballot drop boxes. 7, providing the local governments can accept charitable and in-kind donations to assist with running elections, as long as donations are disclosed and aren't from foreign entities. 8, providing that election officials are responsible for election audits, requiring election audits to be conducted in public, and requiring election results to be certified based on votes cast. Interesting. It's like they're saying the quiet part out loud. This measure passed by 59.99%. Now I'm surprised. You would think that would have passed by more, but it did pass. So moving on. Prop 2 also added constitutional language saying that harassing, threatening, or intimidating conduct, as well as laws, regulations, and practices that have the intent or effect of denying, abridging, or interfering with, or unreasonable burdening the fundamental right to vote are prohibited. So, what did it change about the Michigan Constitution? It added several voting and election policies to the Michigan Constitution, and some of these policies were new, such as early voting. Others existed as a state statute and were codified as constitutional law, such as the state's requirement that voters show ID and sign an affidavit when voting in person. Who supported this? Representative Joe Schwartz and former state director of elections, Chris Thomas. Political parties that supported it was Democratic Party of Michigan. Now pay attention here, because Representative Joe is a Republican and the political party that supported it is the Democratic Party. So it looks like this measure had bipartisan support. Also, unions that supported this include American Federation of Teachers, Michigan AFL-CIO, Michigan Education Association, Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters and Millwrights, SEIU, Michigan State Council. And here's some of the organizations. I'm not going to read all of these, but APIA Vote Michigan, American Civil Liberties Union, Detroit Action, Democracy Fund Voice, Ballot Initiative Strategy Center, to name a few. Arguments. This is from Dale Thomas, professor of political science at University of Michigan. It is about election integrity. It is about avoiding circumstances like we've seen under the big, I can't say that on here, but you guys can read it. Yeah, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but you guys can read it. I'm not going to state that. YouTube does not like that. And who opposed it? Secure Michigan Vote and Protect Michigan Voter ID led the campaign in opposition. And this is interesting. All of these Republican politicians opposed it, except for that one gentleman who supported it, who was also a Republican politician. And political parties was the Republican Party. So that gentleman split from his party, basically. Organizations against it: Americans for Tax Reform, Heritage Action for America, Liberty Initiative Fund, Michigan Farm Bureau, to name a few. Now, let's go on to the last one. And you can see there was like over $23 million spent to support it and over $8 million to oppose it. You see all this money that goes into supporting and opposing these initiatives. That's money that could be used to build clinics in communities. That's money that could be used to house homeless people. Interesting. All right. And the last measure, see here, Michigan Prop 3, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative. Now, this is the big one. A yes vote supported providing a state constitutional right to reproductive freedom, which is defined as the right to make and effectuate decisions about all matters relating to pregnancy, including but not limited to prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion care, miscarriage management, and infertility care. This passed by 56.66%. It should have passed by more than that. But what I liked about this measure is that they were smart to include all matters relating to pregnancy. And I say that they were smart because that includes contraception, that includes prenatal care, that includes sterilization, like all of that. It's not just about a woman's right to choose. It's not just about abortion. It's also about things like contraception. So I'm glad that they included that as well. So it says here that the ballot initiative provides that the state can regulate abortion after fetal viability, except that the state could not ban the use of abortion to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant individual. Who supported it? Reproductive Freedom for All. So that includes Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren? How is Elizabeth Warren all the way over here on Michigan's ballot initiatives? Interesting. Elizabeth Warren, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and Attorney General Dana Nessel. Political parties, Democratic Party of Michigan, and the Working Families Party. And they just need to call it what it is. The Working Families Party is still part of the Democratic Party. I hate that they try to make it seem like it's a separate thing. It's the same damn thing. Unions, American Federation of Teachers, Michigan, and Unite Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, to name a few. Organizations, American Civil Liberties Union, Abortion Care Network, Black Voters Matter Advocacy Fund, Catholics for Choice, Center for Reproductive Rights, to name a few. And one of the arguments is Prop 3 is unrelated to care for children and adolescents with differences in gender identity. Parents play a critical role in decision-making when it comes to gender-affirming care. Parental involvement and consent is required for hormone care in minors, and passage of Prop 3 will have no bearing on this. So, who was opposed to it? Senator Majority Leader Mike Shirkey. So if you're in Michigan, you need to know this. And also Tulsi Gabbard. Why is Tulsi Gabbard over here in Michigan? So pay close attention, guys. That's two politicians that do not govern in Michigan, don't live in Michigan. Elizabeth Warren and Tulsi Gabbard. Why are they all the way over in Michigan's business? But note, Tulsi Gabbard opposed it. Desert Manta says Elizabeth Warren is a native Michigander. Oh, okay. Well, Tulsi isn't. So why is Tulsi there? Organizations who opposed it: Catholic Diocese of Lansing, Grand Rapids Right to Life, Michigan Democrats for Life, to name a few. And one of the arguments that opposed it was this poorly worded amendment would repeal dozens of state laws, including our state's ban on tax-funded abortions, the partial birth abortion ban, and fundamentally alter the parent-child relationship by preventing parents from having input on their children's health. So that's that for Michigan. And then who or how much money was contributed to oppose it? There's over 47. Oh, wow. Yeah. Over $47 million to support it and over 21 million to oppose it. So that is Michigan. Interesting, huh? The Tulsi Gabbard part is really weird to me. Like, that one really rubs me the wrong way. It's like you're in Hawaii. Whoever said, I don't understand this whole endorsing politicians and bills thing. Why do people care who likes who or what proposal? The question is whether you yourself like them or it. Yeah, it's really interesting the amount of effect that one politician endorsing a certain measure can actually have on the voters, though. You'd be surprised how many of them will say, oh, yeah, Elizabeth Warren supported it. I liked Elizabeth Warren, so I'm going to go in favor of what she said to do. Or other people may be like, oh, Tulsi Gabbard opposed it. I like Tulsi Gabbard, so I'm going to do what Tulsi said to do. It carries more weight than you may realize.